Going back, Arsenal. What was it like to walk back through those doors again as a player, but a more mature player, an older player, a more experienced player?
Well, back to the club at that point really was, it was like walking, it was a time capsule. The Highbury hadn't changed, hardly at all. So you're coming back to familiar surroundings, just maybe the clock end had changed slightly with the boxes, and then they'd done a little bit of work to the, well, they hadn't done any work at that point to the North Bank. So the training ground was the same, hadn't really gone anywhere. I mean, of course, there was to be massive changes take place once Arsene Wenger arrived, a brand new training ground that we went to, and then ultimately to go to the Emirates. But then it was pretty well in a time capsule. I would like to have been more of my youth team colleagues still there. David Rocastle had gone, Mickey Thomas had gone, all those players, and Tony Adams was that sort of common denominator that was still there. That was nice. A few of the staff, Gary Lewin had been a player there, now was the physio. But it was very much, you know, look, unfinished business, let's get back to this football club. I think the fans were a little bit uncertain as to why we were buying another central defender. It seemed that that George was, you know, collecting central defenders, and they probably wanted money spending elsewhere. And, you know, I wasn't returning back as the prodigal son, put it that way. I think the fans were looking for me to sort of earn the right to get their respect, and that probably took quite a few years.
Mm. Speaking of the older names, I just remembered meeting one. I think he just retired not too long ago, Vic Akers.
Vic was a kit man, yes,
yeah.
And also the ladies' team manager, an incredible, well, the Arsenal's most successful manager, actually. If you look through the number of trophies that he won, he was doing 2 jobs at once, Vic. He did an incredible job.
He gave me a pair of boots.
Yeah.
I walked into the dressing room after a match with Kevin Campbell because I said, I'm going to leave now to buy a pair of boots. And Kevin said, no, 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 no. We're at the Emirates, you just follow me. And he took me in. And Jack Wilshere came and shook my hand. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang came and shook my hand. They probably thought I was some investor. I wasn't. I really wasn't. I was just there.
Kev is a great guy. Kev Campbell is another one. I really enjoyed being around Kev. And Vic was incredibly generous. You know, they're probably somebody else's boots, but...
yeah, it was a pair of Puma boots who were the sponsors at the time, I still remember.
Yeah, I never used to like to ask Vic, he's gone now, for shirts. He'd be inundated with former players coming back asking him for bits and pieces. Tony Donnelly was our very first kit man. And yeah, that was tricky because Tony was always looking for excuses to bring us in on a Sunday to help him to clean the boots. So in those days, if you were seen in and around the first team dressing room unexpectedly, you were invariably coming in on a Sunday, and that was a big penalty because we all wanted to be going home for the weekend.
Yeah. When you were a young player there at Arsenal, just humour me, whose boots would you clean?
Gosh, you'd clean all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was how it was.
I thought you were given like a player.
Well, yes, I don't remember being actually given anyone in particular. We did things a little bit differently at Arsenal. So some players were sort of on a cleaning boots duty. Some were on balls and bibs. Some were on other, you know, putting out equipment on the pitches. So we kind of did it differently. So we all mucked in as a group, but never really did anybody's boots individually. Did
anybody give a good tip for Christmas?
Not to my knowledge. I remember us actually, strangely, the club used to give us a turkey, you know, like...
Each?
Yeah, so it was kind of like they give you this, it was a tradition, must have been a tradition for the young players. I don't remember receiving any money from the players, but we got a turkey at Christmas, and it was a case of getting home as quick as I could to get it in a freezer or get it in a fridge before this thing was going to go off.
Oh. Wow, I was not expecting that answer. Usually players will give boots to the apprentice, or, you know, a £5 tip for Christmas, whatever it might be, but I've never heard of a club giving a turkey.
Well, I think the players whipped round to give us that as a gift, yeah. Wow, that's what happened.
That's special. Personally for you, when you did go back to Arsenal, did you feel like you had a point to prove? Were you driven by that?
Of course. You know, first of all, it was about getting in the team. You know, I'd left and Steve Bold had come in, and, you know, maybe I'd opened that door up. That was something that happened. He took full advantage of that. He wasn't going to let go of that position lightly. Andy Linnigan had also come in, and Andy had won the FA Cup for Arsenal, one of those trophies that I'd sat and watched, couldn't play. So there was competition not just from Steve Bold, it was from Andy. There was other outside, you know, other players there as well coming through the ranks. So yeah, it was just a case of actually getting the show back on the road, really, and getting back in an Arsenal jersey. I was really pleased to be back. I had to pinch myself, really couldn't believe I was there, and I was determined that we were going to do well. I mean, it started off initially pretty well, winning that trophy, the Cup Winners' Cup trophy with George. But then, of course, George Graham lost his job, and there was a lot of publicity around that, which left a bad taste in the mouth, really.
Did it shock you?
I think the players have forgiven George for that. I think players had. It seemed ironical that there was money involved, when I think the players were really trying hard to. You know, it was well documented. I think the Arsenal players' contracts weren't the greatest in the top division. I think Arsene Wenger asked me to go and talk to Ken Fryer as soon as he arrived, saying, you know, your contract's not right, you need to go and get that sorted. And that was a group of us. And that sort of hung about, I think, from the George Graham days. But then George was running the ship his way, and he was obviously given a budget, and you know, we never really discussed that with him. But I do feel, you know, it was really sad to see George go in the way that he did. I think he'd done an amazing job at Arsenal.
Yeah, as a player as well, not only
player,
as a
manager. And again, we don't really see too much of him now at the football club. I think that's something that's going to change. Hopefully we see more of him and more of Arsene Wenger in the future, in and around the director's box.
Yeah.